Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 2. Just from the get-go, I want to say how pleasant a surprise this show is, and I don't know if that's just like my expectations were a little bit lower because the end of Game of Thrones is kind of just like, wah, wah, but this has been really, really good so far.
Yeah, but we have to remember that the beginning of Game of Thrones, that first season was a 10 out of 10. It was so good. So, I didn't expect this show to start out Game of Thrones last season where it was just like, wah, wah, wah. I expected this level, and they've been delivering this level.
Here is my impression of George R. R. Martin, who I'm pretty sure is the big winner. He's just like strutting around right now because he's done this whole promotional tour, like downplaying his role in the end of Game of Thrones. And now that he's like, executive producer, so involved in House of the Dragon, he's just like, I told you so. Okay,
No,
George R. R.
right.
Martin doesn't sound like that. But okay, no, we got a lot to get into in this episode. There's a lot of interesting moving parts. But of course, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we are here through all of season 1 talking about all these shifts in King's Landing, and we don't want you guys to miss any of that.
Also, follow us over on Instagram, Matt and Jess TV.
Can I just start by saying, and this may be a guilty admission, I may come to regret this, I kind of love Daemon. And I'm not saying I root for Daemon, I'm not saying that like I would want to hang out with Daemon in real life. But this guy, who does this guy think he is? He's just like going out and being like, this is my island, putting his own flag on it for no apparent reason. The audacity of this guy, who is kind of a moron, but also really compelling to watch.
Yeah, he is a great character, and sort of back in this time period, being the second son, you're probably not going to end up on the throne. You really do have to try to find a way to carve things out. I don't think he's all bad. And, I could be eating my words later on when he does something really bad. I don't think he's all bad. I think he's frustrated. I think he just feels displaced. He doesn't really know where he's supposed to fit in all of this. And I would suspect that being the second son is, you get that feeling where you're just like, man, I really need to carve out something for myself. If I'm not actually ever going to be king, then, where do I fit in? And that is a lot of him, where sometimes he's kind of like, I'm all powerful, I'm going to take this over. And other times we've seen him really vulnerable and having these conversations where he's just like, I just don't know what to do.
He feels like he has like some military capability, it seems like he has a certain degree of charisma, but he's also just got like this insane amount of privilege that comes with his last name. Like, let's just say I go out and I go and sail on a boat like 30 miles into the Pacific Ocean and I plant a flag somewhere and I'm like, this is my island. How quickly do you think I get arrested? I feel like it is fast.
Probably, but it's really interesting because he feels, because he's the king's brother, he can go up against him on an equal level, even though that's not exactly the case. He feels that way. But we saw that conversation at the end with Corlys, where it was kind of like, they're both the second sons, where he's kind of like, we need to carve out what we want. The king is this, the king is that. And seeing Daemon turn around and be like, I can talk about the king the way that I want. He is my brother.
Yeah.
You can't do that. I was just like, oh, okay. So there is still something there that we'll call respect.
Corlys has just taken some serious L's in this episode from start to finish. I suppose that a guy who's kind of like called the sea snake, we shouldn't be that surprised that he's doing some like snaky maneuvers here.
Yeah, and I get where he's coming from. He's sort of part of this land, and just his part of the realm was getting all just trash, and he's having a really hard time, and nobody's helping him. And he's like, you know what? I'll marry off my 12-year-old to the king. Did anyone else out there feel as uncomfortable as I did watching the king walk with this child and have her be like, I can offer you children? I was like, I am icked.
Yeah.
It was so weird. And I'm not saying like that wasn't part of the time and all of that, but that doesn't make it less icky. This show has had 2 episodes they've made me wildly uncomfortable in both of them, with that birth scene in the first one and this scene in this one. Also, the maggot scene threw me off a bit.
Okay.
And I'm a former funeral director. I have seen my share of maggots in my lifetime, and it always makes me feel weird. So that was also ick. But that was really, really weird and uncomfortable to watch for me. Anybody else?
Okay, no, beyond just me, you know who else was really uncomfortable with this? King Viserys.
Oh.
Like, this is an interesting take, and this is not a take I expected to have on a Game of Thrones sort of show, but I feel bad for him in a lot of ways, where it seems like he legitimately loved his wife Aemma, and it seems like he was like devastated that she died, and it seems as though in this episode, like, his state of mind is like, do I really have to get married again? Well, a small council wants me to. Well, I suppose it's my job as the king. Well, I guess I'll go and have this really awkward walk with this child Lena, where as soon as she starts that spiel, he's just like, who told you to say that? Like, he clearly is like so ungodly out on this entire situation, where even in this time period, he still has the wherewithal to still be kind of like, and I know obviously with everything with Alicent, like, that's still really uncomfortable, but even with him here, he's just like, this is a bridge too far even for me in this time.
Yeah, and I mean, there was actually a moment at the end of this episode where I thought Corlys was going to offer up his daughter to Daemon. And to be like, okay, if I can't get her married off to the king, I can get her married off to the king's brother. And then I can back up that game and get him in the throne so that then I'm still getting what I want. I was waiting for that offer to come on the table.
I think it still could come on the table. Like, the thing that's going to be really interesting about sort of where we go from here in episode 2 is they have sort of sown all these seeds of potential bitterness that I think are just going to spiral out of control as time goes on and on here, where like Corlys saw this opportunity that he could assemble more power, that he could unite these families, and now like that rug is going to get pulled out from under him. And sort of based on where we see this episode go, like, it's only going to get worse if, you know, we're in a situation here where Viserys and Alicent, like, they end up having a male heir, and then you've got Corlys getting even more bitter, and then you've got Rhaenyra kind of getting into the mix here as well.
Oh, Rhaenyra. Oh, man. That look on her face when her father announced that he was marrying, like, her best friend, someone who seems like could be a love interest for her. It was, like, just heart-wrenching. And I mean, that's the story they needed to go with. Not with the 12-year-old. There wasn't going to be able to be like a lot of story mined from this. This was the story. This is going to be so messy and so difficult. It's exactly where they needed to go.
Okay, this is where my one critique of this episode comes in, and I am really enjoying this. But one of the big criticisms I know a lot of people had with the end of Game of Thrones, it moved way, way, way too fast at a lot of points. And I kind of wish that we just had a little bit longer of Rhaenyra and Alicent being friends and sort of building up what Rhaenyra is going to feel like as this sort of heartbreaking maneuver, because this is only the end of episode 2. And I know they're probably moving forward in time fairly quickly, but there's a season 2 already ordered here. Like, there's no need to get to this point so fast. Maybe that's just me, though.
No, I think there was another part for me with Rhaenyra that's moving too fast as well, where I kind of I needed a little more build up with it. And again, I love this show too. It is absolutely a 10 out of 10. It is fantastic. However, I feel like they're moving her too quickly into this I'm all powerful. I was named the heir in the last episode, and now I'm going to be doing all these things like I am the queen of the realm. I'm going to go against my father, who's also the king. And, you know, kids do that. But at the same time, I mean, she's speaking up in council. They're going to meet her uncle, and she's bringing a dragon and being like, kill me if you're going to kill me. I'm just like, it's a bit too fast. Like, I was thinking we might get there middle of the season. They are building her up to be someone who's, you know, very strong, very capable, a good leader, and someone who's ready to get into the action. And all that was built up in the first episode. And then the second episode, she's like, and she's here already. I was just like, oh, okay. But then it also kind of made sense because when they showed up, Otto shows up without a dragon, I was just like, why would you do that? That's really weird. That doesn't make any sense. You guys know what's going on over here on Dragonstone. Why would you come without a dragon? And then, of course, they wanted to have that big moment where she shows up with the dragon. I was like, all right, I'll bite it.
Otto, you too busy trying to figure out how to set up your daughter with the king. You're not putting enough effort into your negotiations at Dragonstone. Like, yeah, with Rhaenyra, I want to see just like a little bit more vulnerability. I want to see a little bit more of just like the full picture of who she is, because she is still very, very young in this world, and we've got time to build this up. Like, I will say this, because I think this is all going to be very, very intriguing now. Presumably, if Alicent gives birth to a male heir and all these sort of questions get thrown into this world, what becomes of Rhaenyra? Does she take revenge? Like, if she goes like complete and total like Daenerys level heel turn at some point, I will buy that more than I bought it with Daenerys, because we already are seeing with Rhaenyra like a significant cause to be angry, where she thinks she's gonna be like this revolutionary queen. She's gonna upset the very way of doing things, and then like the rug just gets like yanked out from under her for no real reason other than that she's not a man.
Yeah, she has a lot weighing on her. Now her best friend is marrying her father. And yeah, she's was named the heir that's probably going to be taken from her. There is a lot weighing on her that I could see it go that way. But they would have to really build it up. I mean, they just went with Daenerys like that, like in a second, where all of a sudden it was like, I spent all these seasons building this army so that I could take back what's mine. And then she gets there and she's like, burn it to the ground for no reason. I was just like, no, cool. I don't think they're going to make this same error again. It feels like we're on a good path, but who knows? I just really want them to kind of take their time with her, really develop her. Don't just quickly, episode 2, show her as like this powerhouse. She's like, what, 15?
Yeah.
Give her that time. I want to see some stumbles with her. I want to see that she needs to learn stuff. She didn't just, turn 15. She's like, and I'm here and I'm perfect. There needs to be a little more stumbling.
And it feels like there's a golden opportunity to sort of showcase some of that. Like, I'm really happy that we've spent most of these first 2 episodes kind of concentrated on King's Landing before they've started to expand things outward. Like, there's an opportunity to kind of do this a little bit with what's going on here in the Stepstones and the conflict that's happening here with Crabfeeder, which, by the way, tremendous name for a villain. Like, if I'm gonna have a ridiculous adversary, name him Crabfeeder.
There's also like a little bit of, I wonder if near the end of the season, if it turns out that Rhaenyra is getting sort of displaced, like what's happened to Daemon. She is close with her uncle, but not so much. It comes in waves.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility, not that she's gonna break bad or anything like that, but that she could end up sort of leaning on him, or him leaning on her a little bit more, because they end up kind of in that same spot again.
Man, that would be fun. Like, I would be so interested to see where things go with all of that, because it's like, once again, King Viserys is not a bad king. Like,
no.
He's really accomplished at what he does. He's reasonable. He listens to the small council at times. Other times, he's probably like, no, you guys are not going to make me marry a 12-year-old child. Like,
yes.
He understands how to be a decent king. And so the idea of like, here's these other people who just want power or notoriety or something else, even if Rhaenyra would be a good queen down the line, which she certainly could be, overthrowing Viserys still doesn't seem like that good a look.
No, and I think that Rhaenyra could sort of be that middle touchstone between Daemon and her father, where if she is feeling kind of displaced, I don't mean like go over to Daemon and they're together going to take down the king, but I mean more like just a a bond over feeling displaced, not a like, what are we going to do about it now? Let's take them down kind of thing, but that it could bring them kind of both into another spot where maybe they could carve out something else that's not like they, going to be the king or queen.
I kind of want to see them be like, we got to take him down. I want to see what
I don't think she's going to go there.
Only if they really build it up. Like, if they build it up and put us in a position where we can see that, I'm for it. But I think the thing is just that I think they're going to move in an unpredictable direction the rest of this season. Like, we've still got a lot of time left. I think because Rhaenyra is so young, she could have some moments where she's sort of like that, and then she sort of backs away, where she's like, really? I want to team up with Daemon. Daemon, of all people.
As long as they don't, like, put her on a track that she's just the new Daenerys, and that they're like, you know what? We kind of screwed up with that in that final season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Let's put in another girl around the same age that, kind of looks like her, that's strong like her, that's going to be sort of taking on that same role, but this time we'll do it right, that kind of thing. As long as they don't go down that road and they give her her own sort of identity, then I'll be really happy with that. And so far, so good.
You guys are doing a good job. Just take your time. Be patient. You don't have to give us everything at once. See, I'm just scarred by Game of Thrones. This is the thing. Like, if this was any other show, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here so nervous. But it's like, you guys are doing a good job. Please don't ruin it. Please don't ruin it.
Listen, I'm a defender of Game of Thrones, the journey.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the end was, bad. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
It was bad. But that doesn't take away from the journey. It's interesting because I see people online being like, oh, I've never seen Game of Thrones. Even my brother, oh, I've never seen Game of Thrones. Should I watch it? The answer is still yes. I think you should watch it. Just be aware that the journey is fantastic, but it's an unsatisfying end. It's kind of like Dexter. Same thing. Yes, you should watch it. Great show, great journey, but that ending, just be prepared.
Don't worry, guys. There's a chance the Jon Snow spinoff will happen, and maybe that will redeem 1/10 of the Game of Thrones final season.
Maybe.
I ain't fixing the other 90%. But okay, we'll go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any of our other coverage of House of the Dragon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you here next time.